BB-8.
It could drive my car. You know, it could do so many things for me.
My response is going to get me in trouble, so I'm not going to say.
No.
There's one in Target. You know, like have you been to a Target lately where they have this really cool BB-8 display?
Yeah.
And you know, it's like it takes all of my good upbringing to not steal it. Just like I just want to take it somehow. I'm gonna find a way to steal it. I'm gonna like plan a heist. Like I want to go in there. I thought about getting a suit, like a business card from Disney, saying I'm here to collect the BB-8. And I've thought about all this stuff. I'm like, you know, I would never do such a thing, but I've planned it. It's amazing how meticulously I've planned it in my head. Like this is how I would do it. This is who I would ask to help me. This would be the distraction we run. I would wait for the right crew because I know there's some of the idiots at Target near us.
I could help you.
Yeah, I want that BB-8. Like it's not really a function, but it's a life-size BB-8. I think
right.
So awesome.
Well, what makes BB-8 any better than R2-D2? I like R2-D2.
Cuter. He's adorable. Well, no, I'm not. I don't want to diss R2-D2. I really do. No, I don't want to. I love R2-D2. He was my first droid love. But this BB-8, he just has like this personality. He's cute. He's adorable.
Wait, are we talking about Star Wars or Blade Runner here?
He reminds me of Wally a little bit.
He's a little bit of Wally. But here's the difference. Okay, having built 2 R2-D2s in my life, and trying to build a BB-8. First of all, BB-8 is much harder to build because of the spheres involved and all this stuff like that. But also is this, like BB-8 was designed better than R2-D2, obviously. No, because R2-D2 is made for big metal floors and spaceships that you can just roll along. Where BB-8, like one of the coolest scenes in Star Wars, and it's not giving away anything at all, because we don't give away stuff, but one of the coolest scenes in Star Wars is when BB-8 is coming down the stairs behind her. Do you remember this scene?
Yeah, just hopping down the stairs.
Slowly rolling down the stairs, and the amount of detail they did in Star Wars is incredible because she's in the background. You know, you're not even looking at her. I mean, you're not looking at BB-8. BB-8 is he a boy or girl? That's another question for another day. But you're not even looking at BB-8.
I think we can feel safe in terms of the plot lines of Star Wars. It's made more money than the Powerball. So come on.
Yes, but the scene in this scene, if you get to see it again, which you probably will at some point. Watch how like Rey's coming down the stairs, and BB-8 every time he goes down a stair, before he goes down the stair, his head goes down, looks up the stair.
He looks at the stair. Yeah, I noticed that too.
Slowly looks up, rolls down. I mean, R2-D2 never could have come down those stairs. Only the R2-D2 in the weird prequels where he could fly could have managed that. But you know, I'm telling you, R2-D2 doesn't get anywhere. He's a hard one to get around because I've, like I said, built 2 of them and gone around Comic-Con with them and with my son. And R2-D2, you need a lot of space and you need a lot of certain kinds of terrain for R2-D2. He's not an easy one to carry around.
Russ, I have to bring this up because if your team or my team had made the NFL playoffs, they would have lost like either Cincinnati or Minnesota did.
I would say I would say more like Minnesota than Cincinnati.
Buffalo would have
lost like Cincinnati. The Jets would have lost like Minnesota. That's really the breakdown there.
I mean, I didn't realize until I saw the replay. It was a chip shot. It was what, less than a 30-yard field goal, and he missed it by.
Yeah, all right, but here's why. It's not because of the laces, because obviously he made the other kick during the game with the laces. The problem was the kick coverage. Just wait, the kick coverage was breaking down. Richard Sherman got within a fingernail of blocking the previous field goal, so that's what got in his head, and he rushed his kick. That's what did it.
Yeah, honestly, you had 2, I thought, pretty boring games and 2 pretty exciting games. I thought the Green Bay game wasn't that great. And obviously Kansas City Houston was terrible.
So I didn't follow it very closely. None of the balls were filled with helium yesterday. There was no like Jello thing going on with the balls or anything like that. Everything was perfectly fine. No one just picked out a Nerf ball for a 3rd down play at some point.
Nope.
Everything's fine. Okay,
yep.
Good. Right.
No, but Cincinnati shot themselves in the foot. They took two personal fouls in the last 20 seconds of the game to make a long field goal into a short field goal, and basically threw away.
That's one of the biggest cheap shots I've ever seen, by the way.
Oh my God! I honestly, Dan, when I saw that, I thought Darryl Stingley and Jack Tatum. I thought he was
like that to put an NHL comparison, like. Or just from playing hockey in my past, that's something I leave the bench over. That's how bad it was.
And I'm using a reference here that probably most people who are watching don't realize. You know, Russ, Kevin, and I, we're old enough to remember Jack Tatum and Darryl Stingley. I mean, he was paralyzed after that hit, and the way that Antonio Brown's head swiveled after that hit, I thought he was seriously hurt, but apparently they say he's fine.
You know, I interviewed Pac-Man Jones as a rookie before he entered the NFL, and came away from that interview and the whole day just that he was a total idiot, and that was back in like 2006. A decade later, he's still a total idiot.
Jeez. Yeah, well.
All right, let's start the show because we wanted to also mention, of course, the David Bowie thing, but
yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, and it's weird because I mean, 2 days ago he celebrated his 69th birthday, and he released his new album. And there was a picture of him on Twitter, and apparently it was a very recent picture. You know, him wearing a hat in New York City, and didn't look like he was on death's door. He looked relatively healthy for a guy who was. And I was surprised he was 69. He didn't strike me as being. I didn't know what his birthday was. And then 2 days later, I'm about ready to go to sleep last night, and all of a sudden, I thought it was a hoax. And then everybody started talking about it, and it's sad because, I mean, he's a musical rock icon.
Yep.
And really a chameleon when it comes to his. I mean, early in his career was more art rock, was almost in a way progressive. Guys like Rick Wakeman were going to be in his band.
yeah.
Wakeman actually played on Changes, and what I didn't know, a friend, Kevin Saturius, who's on Facebook, actually told me, because he's a little older than me, that Wakeman almost got kicked out of school sneaking into the studio to play on that album. Like, I just didn't even know about that. I didn't.
Yeah, and then
that's why I learned the essence.
That's a good reason to get kicked out of school.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah.
If you're going to get kicked out of school, kids stay in school. But if you're someone like a David Bowie offers you a chance to play in your album, you take the risk of getting kicked out of school for it.
Yeah, and then in the mid '70s, he new wave and punk. He constantly evolved, and all of it was good. So it's really
intro to NHL '99.
Yeah.
Heroes, remember?
Yeah, Heroes opened it up. Yeah. The thing that I remember about him, and I certainly have seen a lot of videos and everything else, and grew up listening to his music. But when I was at Live Aid, I got there early enough to see the whole Wembley concert first, because they were showing that on the scoreboard, and so like I at least, well, not on the scoreboard, they rented like TVs, like big screen TVs, and so I got to see Bowie in that performance, and I posted that one. It's like 17 minutes of just greatness. It really is. It's just unbelievably great.
Yeah, no, that was one of the finer moments too. And I just went through the whole David Bowie thing with my kids because they wanted to. We talked about that Bing Crosby David Bowie Christmas thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good.
Introducing to him, but let's get started. Yeah, thoughts to David Bowie's fans everywhere, friends, family, of course. All right, it is the 11th of January. I know this to be true.
What year is that?
2016. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, January 11th.
No,
It's Monday. We should pre-record these openings.
I know, producer Dan wants me to pre-record this all the
It's
time.
a fumble!
Here's what happened, okay? It was a fumble, but here's what, in my defense, okay? I suddenly realized that we didn't know what order we were going to do this in. So what we're going to
no, we are. Dan's gonna follow me, and Russ.
And then Russ, and then Kevin. We all know.
you guys
We're
could have played along. You guys could have played along a little bit there. All right.
We're professionals.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, January 11th, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Dan Petru.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen, USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund, and I almost cut off Kevin Allen.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
You're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday, every week, every day. And except for tomorrow. I won't be here tomorrow because tomorrow I celebrate Claude Giroux's birthday and my own. I'll be away tomorrow. So Claude Giroux and I, Claude Giroux and I, we go out and get brunch every birthday. No, I'm not really getting together with Claude Giroux, but it is his birthday tomorrow and mine, and I will be hanging out with my wife all day, which is our annual birthday movie marathon. So that's what we're going to be doing. So anyway, let's get into today because we got a lot to talk about. First of all, I thought Mr. Ovechkin gets his 500th goal over the weekend, and Kevin, we talked about this before. There's an outside shot that he could catch Gretzky somehow.
Yeah, I mean it's in his wheelhouse. I mean, I don't think it's likely, but I'll say about Ovechkin what I said the last time we talked about him, which is I don't think he's appreciated enough today. But as soon as he retires, we're all going to be saying, "Wow, it was incredible that we got to watch him, play." And he's a remarkable goal scorer, and I think it'll help. I mean, I think we're all believing that the Capitals are going to make an extended run this season, and whether they win it or not remains to be seen. But maybe this is his time to sort of shake away the perception, anyway, that he is not a winner, and that's clearly sort of held back his recognition as a great player, and we've seen that happen with other players, as well, who certainly were superior players, but because their teams weren't so good, or that they were not great leaders and so forth, maybe they were a little bit underappreciated. So, but I don't know. I mean, the numbers simply don't lie about Ovechkin. I saw some stats somewhere about that he scored 150 more goals than anybody since 2005, I believe.
That's 150 more goals. That's astounding.
Yeah. So
that's an unbelievable number when you think about it.
Yeah, and
350 goal seasons more than anybody else since 2005.
I mean, we all talk about how difficult it is in this era to score goals, and yet he seems to every year finds his number.
What is the issue, Russ? I'll go to Russ first. What's the issue, Russ? Why do you think that he hasn't been appreciated?
I think it's this whole Stanley Cup thing. It's this whole, there's an era of fans now that unless you have a ring, you basically get devalued immediately, and it's totally wrong. Like, I just went back and looked at a bunch of Alex Ovechkin articles I wrote. I interviewed him before the draft at the Stanley Cup, and I think I wrote an article mid to late season how he was going to win the Calder, and I probably shouldn't even had to write that article, but even back then, it seems like I had to write that article, and it sort of struck me as funny. Like, I don't know, why did I even write that article? I guess I felt like he wasn't being appreciated even then. I guess that has to be the reason. But the thing is, at the end of the day, he's an all-time great. It doesn't matter if he wins a cup. This is a team game, and the game's changed literally around him, too. The game is evolving while he's playing, and if his team doesn't win, it's not going to be because Alex Ovechkin held him back.
No, I think that's a good point. I think a lot of it is true, like the playoff failure, which isn't all on him. I mean, do we discount Jerome McGinley's career because he hasn't won a Stanley Cup? I don't think we do. I still think he's one of the better players we've seen in a generation. I think part of it, too, is if his name was Alex O'Reilly and he was from Moose Jaw, the perception of him would be a lot different, too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fair. I mean, I think it's fair to say, and I think it's also fair to say that he came up that he and Crosby will forever be linked. And I think that Crosby won a Stanley Cup, won a gold medal.
I think part of it is what Dan said, but I also think, if you think of superstar players, the Gretzkys, the Lemieux, Mike Bossy, I know that those three plus Brett Hull are the only ones who have scored 500 goals quicker than Ovechkin.
Right.
With the exception of maybe Brett Hull, all of them were sort of eminently likable. Alex Ovechkin, he's a great player. He is a phenomenal talent. He's a Hall of Famer. There is no doubting that. He's not very likable in terms of his persona and in terms of what he does on the ice. I mean, he is the only superstar who probably should have been suspended 4 or 5 times.
You know what? He's kind of like the heel in wrestling. I think he's a likable heel. I know he's the bad guy. I know he's the the Bond villain. I like it. He plays that role perfectly, I think. It doesn't bother me at all.
That's what he is.
I understand why he's Randy Orton. I understand why people dislike him. Look, I saw it the other night when they played the Islanders, and he put a stick right on Travis Hamonick's jaw. So, and there was no penalty call. So I understand why people have disdain for him. But at the same time, he is absolutely one of the most talented, gifted goal scorers I've ever seen.
See, I don't get the
distinction. Good guy, though. It's not like he's a bad guy.
He's not a bad guy. No, he's not a bad guy at all.
I want to bring this up. I told the story before, but I'll tell it really fast again. This really shows, this to me was a little bit of the difference between Ovechkin and Crosby. Not that Crosby, is a bad guy either. Obviously, Crosby's a great guy, but Ovechkin's every bit as good a guy. I think it's hard to understand maybe because it's a different culture. It's a Russian. It feels different talking to him than Crosby, but.
It's more than that, Eck. It's more than that.
More than that. But the story I want to tell real fast is this: this was a preseason game in Philadelphia, and it was really snowing like crazy. It was horrible weather. Ovechkin had been hurt and not playing in the preseason, not traveling because teams were, why would we play Ovechkin in the preseason? And the Flyers playing the Capitals, and I got there late, which is rare for me. Stress. Brought up that I was late the other day, so I forget. Yeah, but I got there late.
I know.
And I'm getting on the elevator to go up to the media elevator, and I hear like hold the elevator, and who comes running in but Alex Ovechkin and a couple other people. Like I didn't know who they were, a couple of the Russian players. Here Ovechkin for it was like the 8th game of a road trip or whatever in the these crazy preseason road trips. Ovechkin had driven from Washington D.C. to Philadelphia 3 hours to be with his team.
Wow. For
a preseason game in the snow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a fun drive from Washington to Philadelphia at any time of day.
And I'm not casting aspersions of him as a teammate or as a guy off the ice. I'm saying in terms of a player, in terms of a superstar player, he is probably one of the more unlikable superstars because of the way he plays. He's a big guy. He's a big, strong guy. He's like a bull in a china shop, and he creates damage out there. So I think I think he's a great player, and I would want him on any team that if I was a manager or a coach, that no doubt I would want Alex Ovechkin. But that I think is the reason why he doesn't get as much respect as a lot of people think he should.
Go ahead, Kev.
Well, I just think the comparison for him in terms of his personality is Eric Lindros. Eric Lindros could be charming. He could be fun to interview. But there are also days when it was not fun dealing with him. And I think the same way is with Ovechkin. And I think because of that inconsistency, the moodiness, the up and down, like Sidney Crosby, it's the same every day you talk to him.
Right.
He's polite. Ovechkin's more colorful, but you don't know whether you're going to be get the good Ovi or the bad Ovi, and that's how it was with Lindros. So I think Mike's right. I mean, I think there is a large section of Ovechkin fans who think the world of him, and when you write anything that's even remotely negative, you will hear from them. Yeah. But there's also a large collection of fans who, as Mike pointed out, simply don't care for the guy. They don't like him because he's flamboyant. They don't like him because he plays on the edge of the rules sometimes. They don't like him because they don't perceive him to be respectful of the game. There's just 100 different reasons, but and a lot of it is his personality. There's some people that he just rubs people the wrong way.
Yeah,
I definitely think
rookie year he played in the game against Philly, and there was apparently a guy who was booing him all game. I didn't know that, but when I was downstairs, I noticed Ovechkin giving a stick to a kid, and so I just asked him about it, and he told me, he goes, that guy was booing me all game. I gave him my stick. Now he's a fan.
Wow.
That's funny.
And I'm telling you, that's Alex Ovechkin.
And so much of it feels like it's cultural again, Like, I mean, that's a great move by Ovi, but, there's so much of it feels cultural. I mean, when going up the elevator, I said, did you really just drive here? In this weather? I said up 95. He's like, yep, up 95. Well, we took 895 or what he said, something like that. And like, well, what did you drive here in my friend's Prius. Friend's Prius. So he drove. It wasn't like he was taking a Prius or whatever it was. It's like, I'm like, holy cow. And he said he hadn't seen the team for a while. He missed the team, so I wanted to surprise him and show. I'm like, what the heck? That to me was kind of stuff I never would have known it. I'd not been late, so that's a good thing for me. But it's the kind of story that you just never hear about, right? I mean, you never hear about these kind of things. So I thought it was really cool how McClellan went to the NHL, by the way, beforehand, and got the approval for the bench for all the players to come on the ice after Ovechkin scores the 500th goal. I don't know if you knew that or not, but he did go to the NHL beforehand and clear that up because that's having just watched the Gretzky thing, because we had Laidlaw on last week, Tom Laidlaw, and he was telling us about he had an assist on the tying point Gretzky goal, the goal that tied him with Gordie Howe. And then so I watched that goal just to see if what he said was true. When Tom said he just got rid of it as fast as he could because he was terrified to have the puck. It's pretty funny when you look at it from that perspective. But the bench is cleared. After when he tied it, the bench is cleared when he won it. I think that's cool in this day and age. So that we can do that.
There's a reason Tom got rid of the puck that quick. It's because Herb Brooks once said that if Laidlaw has the puck, he better get rid of it quickly.
Yeah,
he actually did say that. So
yeah.
That's probably where.
Actually, what happened was, I've heard this story from Tom a dozen times. It was a practice. He stopped the play, and he asked the players, does anyone understand what went wrong here? He said Tom Laidlaw has the puck. So whenever we're playing and we get to the point where Tom Laidlaw has the puck, you need to make a mental note that we've made a mistake and we need to make That's what he said. He stopped practice and everybody stop where you're at. So
that is great.
Yeah, there's some defensemen you want to carry the puck up the ice. There are other that you want them to take 2 strides and pass it to anybody else.
Right.
Well, that to me, I always kid Tom about that. It's really an indication of how the game has changed. I've seen a lot of those old ESPN, game tapes and stuff from that era, and I covered that era. And Tom Laidlaw, who was not a gifted offensive player by any stretch of the man, was on the second power play unit on LA. And I think to me that's kind of an indication of, just the skill level of the players in today's game has so improved so dramatically, through the years. When I first started covering the league, and I'm just guessing, but I would say only 15 to 20% of the players could one-time the puck effectively.
Right. That's very fair.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That's true. And backward skating was not nearly at the level. That's the other thing. Backward skating,
it was pivoting. It was pivoting that was the problem. When defensemen would pivot, sometimes they'd stumble. And you never see that now. Never.
You get right to that.
I mean, you just look at some of the rosters, like from the mid '90s, or look at some of the cards from the mid '90s that you pull out there at the end of the show, and it's like, oh, God, these guys are in the league.
Oh, I know.
Nice reminder there, Dan.
Not to be a curmudgeon, but one of the things I wanted to talk about today was who the best coach is so far halfway through the year, and at this point in your mind. So as you think about that, I'm going to also talk. I'm going to give my next story, which I think is tied to it, and that is that the Florida Panthers have won 12 games in a row, right? And they now have 12 wins in a row. And from when I was talking to people down there, the fans are starting to come out again, which is what
they are.
It's not all that surprising. Like they had a big crowd the other night for Columbus, on a weeknight. They thought that's pretty impressive. It's not, you're not talking about New York or Montreal, which they always will fill because there's plenty of New Yorkers and Montrealers down in Miami, right? So
winning cures all ills.
They're also a very likable team. The other sports teams down there are a mess, and I think they finally have some stability down there too with that law going through.
Yeah, isn't it crazy?
Here's a point I want to make about the Panthers, and I'd be interested to get your take on this. Like, no one is more bullish on the Panthers than I've been. I'm a big proponent of the job that Dale Talon has done. Let's not forget he was the original architect of that Blackhawks team. He's the guy that signed Campbell to go to Chicago, which everyone has forgotten. Sort of started the big movement of fans coming back to Chicago. I like their young team. I like how he's drafted. I like, Barkov, the Ekblad, is going to be great for a long time. And I'm so impressed with what they've done during this winning streak. I mean, this is incredible what they've done. Now, saying all that, does any of us really believe that they're a favorite to get to the Stanley Cup Final?
Right. No.
Keep reading. I mean, this team has missed the playoffs 13 of 15, 12 of 14, something like that. Whatever it is, it's they've only made it twice, I think, in 14 years or so. So the problem I have is they just have, other than Luongo and a few other guys, they don't have a lot of postseason. So when they get to the playoffs, I'm gonna have a hard time thinking they're gonna continue.
I mean, they do have Luongo, Boland, Yager. Campbell in terms of playoff experience. They have a lot of young assets. I don't think that, and I think you said this on one of the previous webcasts, Kevin. You don't think that Talon's going to really want to rock the boat and risk the chemistry that's going on with the team by making a monster, any kind of big addition. But I keep coming back to a guy like Byfuglien. If somebody that he knows, I think. If Winnipeg does trade him, that might be a direction that Florida would go because Talon knows Byfuglien from the Chicago days. But if you look at the East, other than Washington,
right, I was just going to say that.
Who really has got everything together? Montreal is without Price is declining.
And it's hard to put a ton of faith in Washington. I mean, as much as Washington as well as Washington's done, they still have
7 losses. They only have 7 losses.
Yeah, but they haven't played. This is not the playoffs. So to me, it's with Washington, it comes down to who Washington plays in the playoffs. There's some teams that Washington just can't beat in the playoffs, or at least they haven't been able to the last couple of years. Maybe that changes this year. But
I think they have a good mix. I mean, they have some of their
mix. I think they've got a great mix too.
Some of their young guys have had success in other ways. Rocco Grimaldi had success in the Frozen Four. Barkov had success internationally. Trocheck was on a team with the Vancouver Giants that was winning every year and was very successful. So they are winning players. It's not the same as NHL playoffs, but I don't think when they get there they're going to be like that shell shock because they have Yager, because they have Luongo, because they have Campbell. I think they're one of the top 3 teams. They are.
And the East is so wide open. Like a lot of the conference right now is an absolute mess. The Rangers are a mess. The Islanders are a mess. We don't know what the Penguins are. They're kind of week to week. The conference is real. Tampa can't get their act together. Montreal needs Carey Price to be healthy. The conference is a mess. It's wide open for Florida and Washington.
Although Tampa and Pittsburgh are starting to...
They're showing signs of life, yes.
Well, I think that's a fair argument that the East is such a mess that anything is possible. I think that is fair. But, I think it's completely different. Knowing being a winner, as some of these younger players have been elsewhere, and then learning the ropes in the NHL postseason, which is completely different story. I mean, I suppose. I mean, I've been very impressed by this team, and I like it, and I agree with Mike too that Talon historically he's made moves to bring back guys that he has previously had trust in. That was certainly a part of the Bolin acquisition, and
Brandon Perry is a big reason for that. He wouldn't be playing anywhere else, probably.
The thing too is that there might be some deer in headlights definitely when you get to the playoffs, but one guy who won't be deer in headlights is their goalie, and as we all know, a goalie can carry you during the playoffs.
Especially in the East. I think you looked at the East. The East comes down to the game of goalie, as you like to say, Kevin. It often does. I mean, the East really is going to be the issue. So I mean, Luongo, of course,
I'd like to see Florida do well though, because I think it would be a fun story.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it would be important for that organization to get in the playoffs, obviously, and B, at least go past the first round, to get the guys like Barkov and Huberdeau and Ekblad some playoff experience. So if there's an opportunity for Talon at the deadline with the cap room that he has, with maybe a little increase of the budget from the owner, to bring in a player, even as a rental, to help them get past the first round of the playoffs, I think they'll do it. I think they're going to be buyers at the deadline. Not anything that's going to significantly affect the chemistry of that team, but they will add players if Talon knows who they are and what they would bring to the table.
The only reluctance they're going to have is the Bufflin price is going to be heavy. I mean, and it, I just don't see him giving up one of his top prospects.
Wouldn't the Jets maybe ask for Huberdeau for Bufflin?
No, but they're going to ask for a first-round pick and probably your best prospect. And
Lawson Krause, maybe.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they'll give up Lawson Krause for even Bufflin. They wouldn't.
Well, only if Talon has some certainty that he could sign Bufflin. If it's a pure rental, then giving up a future asset like Krause doesn't make sense for where they're going. But if he's because remember Campbell's contract is expiring at the end of the year.
That
opens up a lot of cap space. If he can get Bufflin signed for roughly what he's paying Campbell, then it makes a whole bit of sense.
Yeah, the only problem is they're going to have a problem similar to what Tampa has. They have a lot of good young players coming up at the same time. So speaking of cap situations, there's been a lot of rumbling about what Detroit is going to do. They're trying to get Kyle Quincy. They may have already done it. I don't think so though, because even though their cap situation, if you go to Fanager, seems to suggest they have a lot of cap room. Their real cap is $66 million because they don't want, if I understand this correctly now, that they do not want to have any overage. They have some long-term injury deals. They don't want any overages next year, and the thought is because they want to make a big move this summer. Well, I think there's only one guy that they would be interested in that. So yeah, it'll be fun to see what the Red Wings do. They have to make a pretty serious move, and what's really interesting is that it could be a guy I think that may surprise some people. So we'll see.
That's gonna be fun to watch. I mean, I think that now I think that does transition us into Jonathan Duran, which we have to talk about a little bit here, because I kept hearing that this wasn't going to happen immediately, but now suddenly everyone else is saying that this is going to happen soon. I
wrote that I thought it would, but it was all dependent on how he played.
Right.
Right. And he had 2 goals in the first period in the first game against Albany on Friday, and then didn't score the next 2 games. But apparently, I mean, there were over. I know the first night in Albany there were 16 teams represented. There were 8 teams at the game on Saturday, and from the reaction, he played well. I guess he played center in a couple of those games, which I thought he was primarily a winger, which maybe they're trying to show his versatility. But I think it's likely he's going to get moved during the week. But I mean, everything that's coming out, Ak, and I don't know if you've heard this, is like the team that seems to be the main focus is St. Louis, but it's not Shattenkirk because they can't afford to take Shattenkirk's salary of over $4 million. The guy that the focus is on is Robbie Fabry, and I think they could get more than Robbie Fabry from other teams.
Yeah, they'll have to get more than Fabry if St. Louis is expecting to get him, that's for sure. Fabry's an excellent player, don't get me wrong, but they're going to have to get more than that.
Minnesota's also in on this as well for Duran. I've heard that too.
Yeah, Minnesota's tight to the cap, though, so they have to do some things too.
They're very
Minnesota, I've heard, doesn't have any room to maneuver, right?
Yeah.
You may know more about that than I do.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, they're definitely involved, last I heard. You don't ask exactly what they have to do to stay involved. They have to do a lot, obviously. There have to be something big that they would have to move that they have to make. I have not heard the same thing about Shattenkirk, though. I do think that Shattenkirk could be included in this deal.
Well, I mean, they'd have to do something else, that's all. I mean, and that's easier said than done. I mean, people say, some of my readers keep sending me Colburn, but who's going to take Colburn?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, he's not. I mean, yeah, he's not really the right fit. I mean, he played with Hitchcock before, but I don't see him as the.
No, this was just sending him elsewhere.
Oh, right. Oh,
actually, just so you guys know, I have Drouin in my early notes as a center.
Okay. Well,
So
I mean,
because I was thinking he did play center, and yeah, on my draft preview stuff years ago, he was a center.
well, Tampa is almost capped out, and they've already put Matthias Ohlund on long-term injury, so they really have no wiggle room, which is one of the reasons why I thought, a likely destination for Drouin, if they're looking to take down some salary, would be teams like Buffalo or Toronto who have cap space that could take a player back, even if it's just to relieve their salary situation. I mean, I don't know. It seems like this is going to happen pretty quickly, but it also seems they want to get a defenseman, and making a forward move like a Fabry just doesn't add up in my book.
I got to tell you, if they lose Drouin and then somehow they lose Stamkos, like I said, they are going to, no matter what they get back in return, no matter what they draft the next couple of years, they will never replace those players.
No, Russ, but the thing is that they have no control over Stamkos right now.
I get that, but they have control over Drouin, and that's why they don't have to trade him.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, here's my understanding of the situation, based from talking to people around the league who have talked to Yzerman. Yzerman is prepared to trade Drouin. He wants a lot. He'd like to have a defenseman, but if you make him an offer of a forward that he likes, he'll certainly listen. If the offers are good enough, he'll trade him now. If not, he'll wait. That's what I've been told. So, which makes a lot of sense from his perspective.
He's got all the time in the world to make this move. He doesn't have to make this move right away. It's not going to be something.
Although, don't you feel like I sense like the Lightning need to do something. Just to get them a little spark. And I mean, the lessons of watching the Blackhawks operate is that they change up their team, and it sort of keeps everything fresh every year. And
yeah, that's very true.
The Lightning quick, look how quick they moved Brendan Saad. Okay, you're not going to take this deal, and see ya.
So the Lightning seemed a little stale this season, even though they didn't win. So maybe they just need to make some sort of move. I mean, the only thing they did right in the off season was sign Condra, right? I think so.
I think that's
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think that's.
But yeah, as we approach the halfway mark, things are starting to turn around a little bit for them. They had a comeback against Edmonton, won that game. They won against Vancouver. I mean, they've sort of been like listless for most of the first half, but they seem to be coming out of it, in the last week or so. And if that happens, then I think the pressure on Yzerman is alleviated, where he doesn't. I mean, one way or the other, I don't think he's going to take a bad deal. He, like you said,
you know what's funny? I don't think there's any real pressure on Steve Yzerman because, I mean, on Stamkos there is. For Drouin, I don't think there is. But I think there's a lot of pressure on John Cooper because I think he's the one now we're all looking at and everybody's looking at as all these things unfold. And if he doesn't keep winning, the pressure is going to really be on John Cooper more than even Yzerman.
He's got that big contract extension, you know.
He does. Yeah.
Can I throw something out there really fast? Because sorry, I've been texting back and forth with this person. Here's an interesting sign when you think something's could be about to happen. I was just told by two different people that these two teams are not in on Jonathan Drouin. So if you notice, I've noticed in the past sometimes when you start to hear teams are not in on him.
Yeah, then they're in on him.
No. Actually, that
means something's close.
That means something's close, and that this team knows that they can't get him.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
All right.
Which two teams, Zach?
One is Minnesota, who I just said, which is possibly in on it. So I don't know if they're watching the show or not.
Well,
and the other, I don't know if I can say yet. But
can we lay odds on the chances of Stamkos being traded before February 29th? I think they're about 100-1. I can't see him waiving his no-move clause to go someplace other than Tampa unless he's 100% sure he's not going to re-sign there and he wants a shot at the cup and he's going to basically, he'll allow himself to be a mercenary for the last couple months of the season. I don't think he's going to allow himself to do that. I think there's literally no chance. Unless
they ask him to.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I agree with that, Mike, but I just think if they say to him, look, we'd like to get something for you, and it's clear we're not going to get re-signed, I think he would feel differently. Now, I just can't see them doing that because they have to believe they're a contender. They got all the way to the final with this team last season. So
right, and don't you think that they could get some? And I'm not talking like a third-round pick like Soderbergh got when he was traded from Boston to Colorado before the draft. Don't you think that a team out there would trade significant players to get his negotiating rights 4 or 5 days before he hits the open market?
No.
I think significant player, maybe you get a player, you wouldn't get, or you might get someone's second first-round pick. You're not going to get players.
I don't think anybody would give up a first-round pick.
No, maybe a second,
Conditional first-round pick. We saw that the last couple of years, which I think is crazy. I can't believe that's even allowed.
They might give it up.
I can't even believe that's allowed. We'll give you a first-round pick if you sign him. It seems to me that seems to go against something. I don't know why. The idea of okay, we're going to talk to him early. We'll give you a first-round pick if we sign him. Feels like, I don't know. That's somehow circumventing something in my mind. Maybe I'm wrong.
This is going to go to the 11th hour. It's all going to be based on how Tampa's aligned in the playoffs. And Kevin's right in the sense that they may eventually walk up to him and say, we really need to trade you. Sorry. Can you help us? And I think he would. He's not that kind of guy. He's not a vindictive guy. And I think he would be a mercenary for 1 year to go to a playoff team. I think he would do that.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I threw that out.
Yeah.
I think they're going to, they're going to use Stamkos. They're going to make a run for it. Mike's right. They've played better. The other day, I noted in the game that, they've had a bunch of players that haven't performed at the same level as last season. Callahan's numbers are down. Filppula's numbers are down.
Johnson's been terrible.
Palat was injured. So they've had a lot of things go wrong. And I noticed the other day it seemed like all the guys who hadn't scored all scored in the game for them. So maybe that was a sign. And they've started to get 3 or more goals in a bunch of games too. So Mike's right, and they are playing better. And I think ultimately if they start winning more than they lose, if they start to win 7 out of every 10 games, they're going to stay Well, we're right back where we were last season. Bishop's been good.
He's been great. I mean, if they could score 3 goals a game, they're going to win a lot of games because Bishop's
right.
having a career year.
Yeah, so I think they'll just let it play out, regardless of how they feel about it. That's my feeling. So.
Yeah, if they're in it, they're going to let it play out.
I think they have to. They have to because they have to take another run. This is if you let him go, you're starting over. I mean, to a degree, you're not completely starting from scratch, but you're taking a step backwards if you let Stamkos go. No matter who you get for him, you're taking a step backwards. So.
Here's the other thing, too, and I'd love to get everyone to weigh in on this, because didn't it seem last season and in last year's playoffs that Johnson was ready to step up and be like a main #1 center? And I know he's been undermined by injury, but do you feel the same way now?
I believe some people on this panel said he was the best American player.
So
I might have said that.
Yeah, you did.
If you guys remember, I wasn't fully on board because I felt like there was a risk of injury with him. And
well, there was talk about how he was going to be the #1 center in the World Cup.
Right.
There was that talk. I just wasn't fully on board, though, because I just felt like the way he would get knocked around, there was a risk of injury, and I think Tampa felt the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I still think he is a quality center, and I mean, you don't know what was taken out of him by the injury. It just seems like in the last week or so, he's starting to play better. The triplets are starting to play like they did last year. And, if they get a revitalized Johnson in the second half, then this team will make the playoffs either as one of the top 3 in the Atlantic or as one of the wild cards, and then, no holds barred. I'd love to see a Tampa-Washington Eastern Conference final. That would be a
Can I give you guys a name I just heard for Duran? Name team to enter the fray? Is Anaheim.
Anaheim. That would be probably Vatanen or Lindholm. It would have to be
one or the other.
I mean, and I guess it makes some sense with Anaheim. That would be.
Well, I put out there. I don't know whether it's been posted or not, but I teams that need to make a trade. I said Anaheim, and the player I think they should try to get is Bufflin. So if they got Bufflin, if they could go after Bufflin, then they could afford to give up a defenseman.
Perfect. Yeah, that makes sense.
He would fit that group of dirtballs.
Well, the thing about Bufflin too, if you're trying to keep up with the Kings, which are the Joneses out there,
Kings, right?
You just you get another bigger player with a big shot. I think Bufflin would help that offense with that big shot.
Would.
He would.
And we all have to see Bufflin and Lucic in a playoff series against each other. That would be just.
And I would think any deal with Anaheim and Bufflin would probably have to center around a guy like Ritchie. Nick Ritchie. They would have to give up a premium prospect like that and probably a draft pick to get him. Maybe they would have to give up one of the defensemen, and maybe Bob Murray is willing to give up one of those defensemen because he's got to sign both of them. Both Lindholm and Vatanen are up as RFAs, and maybe he doesn't want to spend money on both of them. Like Nashville, I think didn't want to have to sign Seth Jones to the money he deservedly would get next year, which would probably be $5 to $6 million a year. So maybe that's the motivation.
If
I
you
could
could
see
only
Lindholm over Ritchie. For Tampa's needs, I could see that.
If you could only keep one of those defensemen, which one would you keep?
Lindholm.
I would keep Lindholm if it were up to me, but
over
Vatanen.
Over Vatanen, I would keep Vatanen.
The contrarian act.
I'm just saying, I'm a real big Vatanen fan. I like Vatanen a lot. I always have.
I'm not saying I don't like him. I just think
I think the potential is bigger for him in the long run. I may be wrong, but they're both really top players. So.
They are.
Can I ask? Does anybody think anyone is going to bite on Chris Higgins?
No.
Oh,
not right now. Anyhow, maybe isn't.
He'll get traded. Yeah, I mean, he's a pretty serviceable player. They'll find a spot for him. I mean, nobody believes their Stanley Cup future hinges on him, but he'll get moved.
Yeah, if they get moved like that day, I don't think he's getting moved ahead of time.
If they retain some salary, I think yes.
Pickup?
So.
No, I think he's going to get moved.
What do we think Bufflin's chances are? Let me throw it out to Kevin for I want to know. Bufflin's chances of being traded at the deadline are percentage-wise?
Here's the problem. He wants to stay there, and they would like to sign him. So it's really going to come down to money.
Right.
So I'm going to say 50-50 only because they're not going to make the playoffs, and I don't know how that's all going to factor in. But if you're not going to make the playoffs, I think even if you're going to try to get Bufflin back in the summer, I think you trade him because you get him. I mean,
you have to.
The standard is a first-round pick for a player of his magnitude is a first-round pick and a prospect.
Yeah.
So
we haven't seen a defenseman like him at the deadline in a long time. Like like a player like that who's a really going to be talked about. I mean, a really hard physical defenseman. They don't keep him at all. I mean, that's really beyond.
Yeah, made for the playoffs. I mean, that's
right, made for the playoffs. I mean, believe me when I say that Philadelphia, you can't underestimate what Philadelphia has missed. It's almost like I tried to talk to somebody the other day. It was really funny. He said to me, like, it's almost like we wish we never had gotten Chris Pronger. Like, because getting Chris Pronger showed us what it's like to have Chris Pronger on your team. Like to have a player who's that big, that strong, who can control that much, and who can run power plays. He can do all these different things.
Yeah, but the problem is that Dustin Bufflin is not Chris Pronger.
No, he's not. But he's not.
Not defensive.
I think Pronger had more of a stranglehold with his play on that league the way it was than Bufflin has on this league.
Yeah, that's a great point. But at the same time, I mean, the Chris Prongers of the world, we could say Seth Jones could be a Chris Pronger at some point, or you could say, Shea Weber's closest thing we have to Chris Pronger in the NHL. I mean, they don't exist, right? There's not many of these at all.
No, there isn't.
From what I understand from some of the reporting that's been coming out of Winnipeg, the main factor with Bufflin right now isn't money; it's term. It's that they
totally fair. No, and that makes sense.
I get that too.
Term is money.
Yes,
It is money.
You're right, Kevin. But what I'm saying is, but I mean, like they wouldn't balk at paying him $6.5 to $7 million, but they don't want to pay it for 8 years.
Right. In the market, he's going to get $8 million. I mean, I really think I really do believe it. So that's why, I mean, $6 million is not going to do it.
I think it's 75%. I think it's 75% that he goes simply because Cheverdayoff has taken so long on these negotiations that I think at some point they're going to just see the writing on the wall. Like it's just not going to happen in time. They can't afford to get nothing for him. They can't.
Yeah, I think it's 95%. I think they're going to sign Ladd and that Bufflin, even though Bufflin wants to stay, even though they want to keep him, I think the money is too far apart, and he's going to get fantastic offers on July 1st. So I think they're going to move him because they have to get.
And they still have Josh Morrissey. There's guys they can bring up.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Mike raises a good point, though. What's changed since the last CBA is it used to be, what your average per year is, and now it's what your total was.
Yes.
And the reason why that is that whole 8-year thing.
Yeah.
Now everybody wants that 8 years.
Right.
They want that 8 year. They want to be able to say I got a $50 million contract or a $56 million contract or a $60 million contract. So. Right. That has become an issue.
It's a good point. It's a really good point.
Yeah, and we're talking about somebody who's 30 years old. If he was 25 and an 8-year deal, it'd be till he's 33. We're talking about somebody who will be 38 at the end of an 8-year deal.
Physical player too, who's got a lot
Physical player, and
what kind of shape is he gonna be in?
You don't know when his speed is going to drop off, and like the contract signed by Ryan Kessler in Anaheim. That looks like a disaster 1 year after it was signed because he's already slowing down.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point.
It is a good point. I don't think he'll get 8 years. There's no way.
I don't think he'll get 8 years, but I think he will get $8 million.
Yeah, I think he can get $8 million.
Yeah, I think especially if he takes a 5-year deal, I think he definitely gets $8 million.
Yes.
Yeah, 5 years. I mean, I think it might take 6, but yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. It's all.
He's not signing for 5 years.
I know. No, of course not. Teams are going to want to sign him for 5 years.
6 years, $48 million on July 1st to the Florida Panthers. There's my prediction.
6 years, $48 million to the Florida Panthers. That I wouldn't completely discount Florida as a good shot.
I wouldn't discount Florida, but then that does close the door on Campbell, and we know how much they love Campbell. So that's going to be a tough decision for Talon to make.
Who's to say that Campbell doesn't come back for a year or two at a reduced salary after making all the money that he's made thanks to Dale Talon over the last
know, but how many guys do that, Mike?
And it depends how much he likes it in Florida. Where's his family?
Florida. It's Florida.
When Yager comes back every year for charity, it's still like $4 million, isn't it?
Right.
Florida has money to do it. Florida has they have. One thing I'll say about them, they're more aggressive than they've been before in this kind of thing. There's no
It's a
question.
good fit too. It's a real good fit.
That's fair, but that's fair. But he's not going to go to the cap unless they prove that their attendance is going to go up.
Yeah, I'm not going to
go. Whatever it is they lose, but it's a lot of money. So
yeah, and some of it depend on how far they go in the playoffs. I mean, if they go 3 rounds in the playoffs, that's a lot of money right there.
I think they're $10 million under the cap right now. They're clearly a budget team, but they'll be closer to the cap number next year if they have success this year and go a round or two in the playoffs. I mean, that'll just encourage the ownership in Florida to spend a little more money because then they could go 3 rounds or win the ultimate prize.
Go ahead.
I just think too is what is Barkov going to command? What is Huberdeau going to command? I think those 2 contracts will. When's Ekblad up? Is Ekblad 1 more year?
Yeah, Ekblad's got another year, I think.
He's got another year. Okay.
The other 2 aren't going to command probably as much as we thought a year ago. So I think they're going to be manageable. I do.
I think Barkov's really on the upswing. I'm not sure about Huberdeau.
I don't think it's going to be crazy. It can't be.
They may sign him.
I predict Huberdeau will be a problem negotiation, and Barkov will get done.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if Huberdeau, because remember there were rumors about Huberdeau being traded last summer.
Right.
Because there were rumors if Florida was interested in Phil Kessel, that Huberdeau would have been part of the package going to Toronto. I wouldn't doubt that they sign Barkov to a long-term extension, get some value instead of bridging him and then having to pay $8 million in a couple years. I wouldn't be surprised if they signed him to a long-term deal and end up trading Huberdeau and maybe getting getting other players.
That's part of a Buckland deal. He really could be.
It could be.
I mean, but the problem with that right now is, you don't want to mess up with anything that's going on.
I don't see that.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the last thing I wanted to bring up. I know we wanted to talk about the other stuff, though. We're running out of time. But yeah, the one thing I wanted to is I got a text about this thing. One of the things I was forgetting in the Duran situation, and this is a good reliable source, is that when his agent came out, we talked about this last week, that Alan Walsh coming out and poking the bear, like you call it, Kevin, the Steven Eiserman. I do agree, but not only did he poke the bear, he said, this person who used your term because he loved it, he said, not only did he poke the bear, he also made us all remember that he's the agent of Jonathan Drouin. Like, and we're going to have to negotiate with this guy when we trade for him.
Yeah.
And, that also didn't help him in that situation. It's very interesting how the NHL works that way. I wonder, I mean, players can always change agents too. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen.
Sure, it could happen.
Yeah, but I would say this. I mean, I do agree with that there are certain GMs that don't like to deal with certain agents and will try to avoid it a little bit, but most of them won't let that influence the player. They're gonna, if they want the player, they'll figure they can make it work. So, and Alan Walsh, there are certain GMs around the league that like dealing with him. Like, he's always had good dealings with the Penguins. I think he knows Ray Sherrill really well in New Jersey. I mean,
was that pre-Twitter days, Kev?
Yeah, no.
No, I think the people know. No, this is the thing I think that people. I do. He's very polarizing. There are, like I said before, 2 of the more interesting people that I've ever talked to in this hockey world are Alan Walsh and Rich Winter, and both are incredibly polarizing characters. Right? They have people who say, oh, those guys are two of the most brilliant minds in hockey, and there are people who just won't even talk to him, won't take their calls. You have the opposite ends of the spectrum. But if people who like Alan Walsh don't look at the stuff he does on Twitter as anything out of the norm, because it's just that's what Alan Walsh would do. That makes that's how he is.
Yeah. No, I mean he's a fascinating character. He's a former prosecutor, obviously, as everyone knows, and he's interesting to say the least. So, I do. The one thing I really admire about him is he is so he has really beat the drum on concussions, and that issue needs an advocate, and he's been the guy. And you need one guy just to keep it always in the news, and and so that's one of his functions. But
he's passionate. He's passionate about things he believes in.
No, absolutely. So
his players are.
I think that your guy's point was well taken. There are some GMs who might look at it that way, for sure. But I think most of them will just figure, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
We can cover the coaches tomorrow, but I wanted to bring up something that came out this morning, which I think will be a big directional effect on the Maple Leafs. James Van Riemsdyk suffered a broken foot in their game on Saturday, 7-0 loss to San Jose, and he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, which will be past the trade deadline. For a team that's 23rd in the NHL in scoring right now, if there were any hopes, and there was starting to be some hope in Toronto that they could climb into positioning to compete for a playoff spot, I think this is a death blow, and I think this points them even more towards the sell-off before the deadline.
It's Levo time. That's what it is.
I mean, I don't think this was already happening. I don't think it mattered if they're in the playoff run.
I think they would have sold off if they were 2 points out of a playoff spot, but now I think this gets them in a position to sell off and get down into the bottom 3 or 4, which I think that was the plan of Brendan Shanahan and Lou Lamoriello all along, and there won't be any pretense here of them competing for a playoff spot.
But Kevin, Mike Babcock always likes his top 6, right? That's the whole thing. His top 6 is the
top 6. He leaves alone, lets them do what they do. And
JVR is one of his top 6 moving forward.
So bottom 6 guys, you perform the way the Babcock asks you to perform. Right. But top 6, he generally leaves alone.
The best example of this ever was Billy Leno in my mind. Like, Billy Leno was a perfect example of this because Billy Leno fell out of his top 6.
Yeah.
You can all say what Billy Leno did in Buffalo in the end of his career, but when Billy Leno got traded to Philly, he was a big part of them running to the Stanley Cup final. He was a really good player in that play.
Because he got moved from a position he couldn't play, center, to the wing, which is where he should have been playing, and Buffalo signed him to play center, which was
center, right. But I think in your mind, who do the Leafs have that are top 6 players right now, Kevin? Is JVR in there?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, they were. Well, the thing about JVR, and Mike and I have never talked about him specifically, but I always to me, he always felt like still part of the solution. Now, not everybody in Toronto feels that way, but
he's one of the guys. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Kevin. He's one of the guys that I want them to keep. He's 26 years old. He's controllable. He's making low money, $4.25 million. To me, unless they get themselves like a top 3 pick for him, or like some can't miss 20-year-old prospect, I don't think they should trade. He's a guy that if they do bring Stamkos in next July, he's going to be playing on the left wing on the number 1 line with them.
Yep.
And this is what I want to ask you, Kevin. They called up Josh Levo, a 22-year-old prospect who's had a couple cups of coffee with the Leafs over the last couple of years. He's a skilled player, and in the AHL he's played on the top 2 lines. Looking at what Babcock has done this year, he's going to move up a guy like Sean Mathias into a top 6 role rather than giving a Josh Levo a chance. And that's where I think, Babcock's hesitancy is sort of detrimental to progress. They should, this is a training camp year. This is 82 games of finding out what you got. I think they should put Levo in the top 6 and see what he can do. Instead, I think he's going to put a veteran up there, and it's really not going to benefit them too much.
Well, what I would say is he'll do, like, he's already, I'm sure, made up his mind about Levo, and if he's on his list of guys he really likes, he'll give him the opportunity. I mean, look at what we judge Babcock on, and what he did was what he did in Detroit, and there's certain guys he empowered, like he empowered Glendening, and he made him a very valuable player because he believed in him. And now this season, Glendening has not been the same kind of player. And there are certain players that he didn't like that never really saw the light of day. So it'll all depend on how he feels about that player, because I'm sure he has an opinion already, and it's hard to change Mike's mind.
Yeah, right.
No, but he hasn't. For Levo's case, though, he hasn't really played much with Babcock at all.
No,
that doesn't mean he doesn't have an opinion.
No, I know.
He was one of
skill, and he does fight for the puck.
Yeah, and he was one of his. Sorry, Russ. He was one of his early cuts in training camp, which is not a good sign. I mean, if he gives him the Frank Corrado treatment, which is play him 1 game every 3 weeks, and on Saturday Frank Corrado is -2, which means we won't hear from him until March.
Right, but you know what? I think at the end of the day, even Mike Babcock's going to look at Sean Mathias and say to himself, what could I actually get out of Sean Mathias? I might get something out of Levo.
Right.
Well, I got to believe the great fans in Toronto truly have a feeling of the value of Mike Babcock, though, because he has done a remarkable job.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah, no question about it.
I mean, there's nothing there, and yet they're competitive.
They're very, it's been amazing. I mean, it really has been amazing. So 3 quick cards with the theme today, and the theme is players whose cards I have on the LA Kings, but who I don't associate with the LA Kings at all. All right, so those are the 3 players I have here. All right, so first up, this guy. Okay, so hold on, let me get this straight here. You can sort of see him a little bit better. All right, this guy was a part of the Islanders Stanley Cup winning teams.
Is that Tonelli?
It would be John Tonelli. There you go. Correct. John Tonelli is Los
I
Angeles.
can't even see the face on that. All right, go ahead.
This guy is known for something that's kind of bizarre. And I don't know if I can get close.
All right, that's good. That's good.
Okay, so yeah, he's known for a little bit. I mean, he was a Flyer briefly, but that's another team I wouldn't associate him with. His main association was the Calgary Flames, but during the sort of towards the end of the Edmonton Calgary heyday, big time scorer, super fast player, also incredible golfer. Come on now.
Oh crap!
Like a golfer that you see in all those golf, like you would see him on tournaments, like in celebrity.
Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn.
You gave it away with the golfer. I can't think of his name.
Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn. Yeah, you knew it with golfer, and I just couldn't put his name together.
Okay.
All right, here, and this is more recent, a little bit more recent. This is a King who was, I think of as an Ottawa Senator more than anything else. I think he was a part of the Ottawa team. I think he was part of the Ottawa team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Anaheim Ducks.
07.
Let me see here. Maybe not. Actually, probably not. 90. No, he's. You know what? Actually, the team he most. I think he was a part of that team, but actually, the team before he was with the Kings, I think, was the Penguins. All right, so he was really more of a Penguin. Then he went, but I think he was with that Ottawa team. After this. So he's like
forward.
He's a forward. He's like a third liner, fourth liner.
Guy.
Really good guy.
Can I see the picture one more time?
He's from Waltham, Massachusetts. How about that?
Waltham, Mass.
Yeah. So he's an American kid who I don't know if he ever played on any of the. Let's see. Yeah, he went to Boston U. U.S. National, and the U.S. National Olympic team. Okay. Before he joined the Penguins at the end of the '92 Winter Olympics. So he's on the '92 Winter Olympics team, Kevin.
That's Albertville, wasn't it?
Yeah, I should remember, but I don't.
A good one.
Is he a right wing?
He is a, let's see, he's a center, 6'1", 180 pounds.
There we go.
He joined the Penguins in his first 25 games as a King. He compiled 12 points.
Yeah, just saying, we're all going to hate ourselves.
John McEachran, how about that?
Oh, man.
Ridiculous.
Oh,
how do we not get that?
I don't think he was on the 07 Senators, but he was on the Senators teams that lost to the Leafs a lot.
Yeah.
So he wasn't still around in 07?
I don't think so.
Yeah, bad clues.
There you go. Those are the three players. This is the box never stops giving. I pull out 3 Kings players that you would never associate with the LA Kings today. Perfect, right? I hit it.
Yes, there you go.
All right, guys. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you soon.